They say happiness is a painting brushed into existence with strokes of love, trust, and shared dreams. I, Lucas, once believed I held that masterpiece firmly in my hands. Once believed my life was a perfect symphony, as peaceful as the small town where I was born. But then one day, a secret buried deep in the past, a discordant note I had never heard emerged, tearing that painting to shreds, turning the symphony of my life into a broken, painful, and haunting melody. Could anyone imagine that the very people you love and trust most could hide a story powerful enough to destroy everything you once cherished? My small town, nestled among lush green hills and a gently flowing river in rural Pennsylvania, always symbolized peace and simplicity. Here, time seemed to slow down, life's rhythm steady with each season's changing leaves, each weekend's farmer's market. For me, Lucas, this town wasn't just where I grew up, but also where my fondest childhood memories were buried: the crisp laughter of children chasing each other in cornfields, the sweet smell of apple pie baking from old Mrs. Murphy's shop, and golden afternoons fishing by the lake, dreaming of things far grander than my little world. My family was an indispensable part of that peaceful painting. My dad, a high school history teacher with a passion for storytelling, and my mom, a kind-hearted nurse who cared for everyone with all her heart. They taught me about honesty, patience, and the importance of family. I grew up with a strong belief in those values, convinced that truth was always the foundation of every relationship. I had a group of friends as close as brothers. There was Mark, my childhood buddy with a wide ear-to-ear grin, always the ringleader of every prank, the one who always brought laughter to the group and also the most straightforward. And James, quieter, less talkative, but always with a keen eye for observation, a pair of ears that listened to all our confessions. James was the type of person who was always there, quietly caring and supporting without grand gestures. We were an inseparable trio, sharing every secret, every joy and sorrow. Our friendship was simple, genuine, like the river flowing through town, unpretentious, calculating nothing. We once promised each other that no matter where we went or what we did later in life, we would always be brothers. My life flowed peacefully until Maria appeared. She moved to town from another state when we were in elementary school, bringing the beauty of a little girl with shiny brown hair, sparkling blue eyes, always full of curiosity, and a slight shyness of a newcomer. From the very first day, Maria was like a fresh breeze blowing into my otherwise familiar life. She had a gentle yet strong beauty, a radiant smile that could light up a room. I was immediately drawn to her, a childish but very real affection. Maria's parents, a quiet couple, but very attentive to their daughter, also gradually integrated into the town community. They were kind people and seemed to be seeking peace in their new home. We were in the same class, and gradually, Maria became an indispensable part of our friend group. Mark was always cracking jokes to make Maria laugh, and James quietly helped her with her studies, sometimes with stolen glances, small gestures that I never noticed, or if I did, I dismissed them. I, in my youthful innocence, was simply captivated by her gentleness and intelligence. The puppy love between Maria and me grew with the years, naturally and purely, like wildflowers by the roadside. We often sat together under the old oak tree in the schoolyard to study, walked home together under the violet sunset, and shared naive dreams about the future. I vividly remember those summer afternoons, cycling on the red dirt road, the wind blowing through Maria's hair, and I felt strangely at peace having her by my side. Looking back now, I realize there were discordant notes appearing in the symphony of my life very early on, but I, in my naivete and blind love, didn't recognize them. There were times I saw Maria and James exchange puzzling glances, private smiles that I couldn't intrude upon. When Maria and I were dating, James often appeared as if by chance, and he always seemed more pensive when he saw us together. Mark occasionally noticed something too, but he would just wink and tell me, "Watch out, Lucas, James seems to like Maria more than you do." I'd laugh it off, thinking it was just a tease from a close friend. I was wrong. Those weren't coincidences, but the first signs of a secret growing in their hearts, a secret I was completely unaware of. When we graduated high school, Maria's and my relationship had deepened, known and admired by the whole school. It was a warm summer evening under the gentle moonlight. We sat on the old swing set in Maria's backyard. I held her hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her soft palm. "I'm going to New York for college to study construction, Maria," I said, my voice full of excitement, painting a bright future. "What about you? You still want to stay in town to study baking, right?" Maria leaned her head on my shoulder, nodding gently. "Yes, I dream of my own little bakery where I can make the sweetest cakes in the world." We shared our first kiss, a kiss of promises and trust. Although we had to be apart, we believed that love would be the invisible thread binding us. Distance couldn't fade our love. However, my college life in New York was a real challenge. The city was noisy, bustling, completely different from my peaceful town. I immersed myself in complex design blueprints, Dry calculation formulas and hours of practical work on construction sites under the scorching summer sun or the biting winter cold. I missed Maria a lot. We often video called each other every night, sharing what had happened during the day. Maria told me about her intensive baking classes, about the first cakes she baked at the local shop, about her first customers. Her voice was always full of enthusiasm. I saw her happy doing what she loved, and so was I. I always told Maria, "Don't worry about your studies. I'll work really hard so we can build our home together later, and I'll help you build your dream bakery big and beautiful." I imagined a bright future where I could build strong homes and Maria could bring sweet cakes to everyone. But then the calls gradually became less frequent, the messages shorter. I was busy with a packed study schedule and a part-time job to cover the expensive living costs in the city. Maria was also busy with her baking classes and working full-time at the local bakery. Sometimes I felt a small gap forming between us, an invisible but very real distance. I asked Maria, "Are you okay? Do you feel lonely?" She just smiled faintly. "I'm fine, Lucas, just focus on your studies." I always reassured myself that it was just due to distance and life pressures. I trusted Maria, completely believed in the love we had cultivated since childhood. I always thought Maria was an innocent, sincere girl who would never betray my trust. I had no idea that those gaps were being filled by another figure, a secret that had existed for a long time even before she and I officially got together. I also didn't know that throughout my absence in New York, James had stayed in town. He frequently visited Maria's bakery, helping her with odd jobs. He became Maria's emotional support when she felt lonely, exhausted from facing life and the pressure of her apprenticeship alone. James's encouraging words and caring gestures gradually revived old feelings, the discordant notes that had been silenced but never truly disappeared. 4 years of college flew by in a blink. I graduated with a civil engineering degree, full of ambition and a desire to contribute to my hometown. I decided to return to the town instead of staying in New York with an attractive salary. I wanted to be close to my family, friends, and especially Maria. I wanted to start a new chapter in my life, a chapter I had envisioned with her, a stable life, a happy home, and a future together. On the day I returned, Maria met me at the bus station with a radiant smile and sparkling eyes just like before. We hugged each other tightly as if there had never been any distance or cracks. The feeling of being with Maria again, breathing the familiar air of the town, made me believe that everything was still perfect, that all difficulties were behind us. Our feelings quickly rekindled, even more passionate and profound than our high school days. I worked at a local construction company, participating in infrastructure development projects for the town and surrounding areas. Maria had also opened her own charming bakery named Sweet Whispers, with delicious pastries and enticing aromas wafting through the street. Her bakery was always busy, and she was a dedicated owner, always smiling when serving customers. I often came to help her on weekends or simply sat sipping coffee, watching her busy with the work she loved. Those were the peaceful, happy moments I had dreamed of for so long. I still vividly remember one afternoon at Maria's bakery. I was sitting in a corner reading a book and sipping coffee, watching her swiftly decorate vibrant cupcakes. The doorbell chimed and James walked in. He looked much different from high school, more mature and composed. Maria startled slightly when she saw James. The smile on her lips suddenly faded, replaced by an indescribable awkwardness. James too paused for a beat, his gaze sweeping over me, then settling on Maria, a meaningful look that I couldn't understand at the time. "Hey, Lucas," James said, his voice a bit strained. "Hi, Maria. Your bakery is really busy, huh?" Maria just gave a strained smile, then quickly retreated into the kitchen as if trying to avoid something. I thought perhaps they were just old friends reuniting and I didn't pay much attention. I trusted my friendship with James too much and my love for Maria. Mark was more perceptive. He had caught James and Maria several times in more discreet places, but when he asked me, I waved him off, thinking Mark was overthinking. He just sighed and shook his head. After 2 years of rekindling our love and nurturing our relationship, we married in a cozy ceremony at the town's old church, witnessed by family, friends, and the entire town. My parents were overjoyed. They always treated Maria like their own daughter and fully supported our relationship. Maria's parents were also very happy. They said Lucas was a good man and they trusted me to take good care of their daughter. Mark and James were my best friends. They stood by me on that momentous day, sharing our joy. I looked at Maria in her pristine white wedding dress, her eyes sparkling with happiness. I thought, this is my destiny. This is the woman I would spend my entire life with. I believed the symphony of my life had been perfectly composed with notes of love and family togetherness. A year after our wedding, our happiness became even more complete when Maria gave birth to a healthy baby boy whom we named Noah. Noah was everything we wished for, a little angel who brought laughter and joy to our home. I loved the moments holding him, hearing him babble his first words, exploring the world around him with him. Maria was a wonderful mother. She poured all her love and care into Noah. She always smiled brightly whenever Noah babbled mama, and I could see boundless love in her eyes. We were a small, happy family filled with laughter and warmth. I thought my life had no more regrets. Yet happiness can sometimes be so fragile, like a sandcastle that can collapse at any moment under the harsh waves of life. When Noah was 3, my company landed a major multi-year project in a distant state, building a complex resort in Arizona. This was a huge opportunity for me to advance my career, to earn more income and provide a better life for my wife and son. I hesitated greatly, my heart torn between career and family. My parents encouraged me, "Son, this is a big opportunity. Family will be here. You just focus on your work. Maria is a strong girl. She'll manage." Maria also encouraged me, "Go ahead, Lucas. This is a good opportunity. Noah and I will wait for you to come home. Just focus on your work. I trust you." Her words greatly reassured me. I believe she understood and supported me. I left carrying the longing for my wife and son and the determination to do a good job. Initially, we still video called, frequently telling each other what had happened. I told her about the vast construction sites, the buildings taking shape, the difficulties at work. Maria told me about Noah, about his funny stories, about the bakery getting busier. But gradually, just like during college, geographic distance and time once again pulled us apart. I was busy with work, with piling deadlines, often working late into the night. Sometimes I had to work 12-14 hours a day, followed by online meetings with colleagues in different time zones. I knew Maria was also very stressed. She had to single-handedly take care of Noah, manage the bakery, and face life's pressures. Her bakery became increasingly popular, meaning she had to spend more time there, sometimes coming home very late. The calls became less frequent, the conversations shorter, and I started to feel an invisible distance growing between us, a distance I couldn't touch or see. I began to feel lonely in my own marriage, although I still believed Maria loved me and that we would get through this difficult period. My parents occasionally visited Maria and Noah. They always said everything was fine, but I still felt a vague unease. Each time I came home, stranger signs became more apparent. Maria would often hold her phone, sometimes late-night texts. She would often startle and put her phone away when I walked into the room. Mark tried to warn me several times. He said, "Hey, Lucas, don't you think Maria and James are acting strangely close? I see them together a lot and it doesn't seem like just regular friends." I dismissed it, thinking Mark was too suspicious or he just wanted to tease me. I trusted my friends and my wife absolutely, and that trust made me blind. Once I saw Maria and James talking at the end of the street, quite far from her bakery. They stood very close to each other and Maria smiled naturally, radiantly, in a way I rarely saw her smile with me during my visits. When they saw me, they quickly separated, Maria's face momentarily flustered. I asked, "What were you two talking about that seemed so fun?" Maria quickly replied, "Oh, nothing, dear. James just stopped by to ask about the bakery." James just nodded, avoiding my gaze. Their answer sounded plausible, but their awkward glances told a different story. I tried to push away negative thoughts, telling myself they were just close friends catching up. I didn't want to be suspicious, didn't want to break the peace I had worked so hard to build. But the seeds of doubt had been sown and they grew quickly. I started paying more attention to Maria's secretive phone calls, the times she quickly hung up when I walked into the room. One time when I came home unexpectedly, I saw Maria talking on the phone in the kitchen, her voice soft and sweet, unlike how she usually spoke to me. When she saw me, she jumped quickly, hanging up her face, looking like someone who had done something wrong. "Who was that, Maria?" I asked, my voice starting to become cold. "Oh, no one, dear, just an old friend." Her answer didn't convince me anymore. I felt an invisible wall building between us, a wall made of lies and concealment. I tried to confront her, but each time I wanted to talk seriously, Maria would evade or blame work pressure. I began to feel lonely right in my own home. On evenings I came home, Maria often made excuses to go to bed early or said she was busy with bakery work. She no longer actively hugged me or shared daily stories. Noah's laughter was my only comfort. I tried to believe that it was all just due to Maria's work pressure because she had to shoulder everything alone when I was away. But deep down, an alarm bell had begun to ring. I wondered, was I the only one trying to hold on to this relationship? The climax was one night when I returned home unexpectedly, wanting to surprise Maria and Noah after more than 3 months away. I had arranged my work so I could come home earlier than planned without telling anyone. I drove all night, my heart full of eagerness to hold my wife and son. The town was still as peaceful as ever, but something in the air made me feel uneasy. When I entered the house, the living room light was still on, but the house was silent. I carefully placed the keys on the table, not wanting to wake anyone. I walked into the living room and the scene before my eyes froze everything within me, like a lightning bolt shattering every illusion of a happy family. Maria was sitting on the sofa next to her was James, my best friend. They sat very close, hand in hand, and the way they looked at each other was not the look of friends, but the gaze of lovers. Eyes filled with a deep bond I had never seen in Maria when she looked at me. James's hand was gently stroking Maria's hair, and she leaned her head on his shoulder intimately as if it were a familiar gesture. My heart stopped. The whole world around me crumbled into pieces. I stood silently in the doorway, unable to utter a word. The air was thick with tension and an unnamed pain. I felt betrayed, stabbed by the very people I trusted most. My blind trust had turned me into a fool, someone who had been deceived for so many years. Maria and James startled when they saw me. Maria's face turned pale, her eyes filled with fear, guilt, and absolute shock at my sudden appearance. James lowered his head, not daring to look me in the eye, his face also ashen. The air was thick with tension and an unnamed pain. I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm, though a fierce storm raged inside me like a hurricane sweeping through. "Explain, Maria," I said, my voice hoarse, cold, unfamiliar. "What is this?" Maria burst into sobbing. She didn't dare look into my eyes. I'm sorry, Lucas," she stammered, her voice trembling so much I could barely hear her. "I didn't mean to. This." James looked up, his eyes full of regret and resignation. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I don't know what to say." I didn't want to hear empty apologies. I wanted an answer, an explanation for everything happening before my eyes. Maria tried to compose herself, took a deep breath, then began to speak, each word like a knife cutting into my heart, severing every thread of trust I had woven over the years. "James and we've loved each other for a very long time, Lucas," Maria confessed, her voice trembling but full of pain, as if tearing open her own emotional wound. "Even before you went to New York for college. Back then you were James's best friend, and I also had feelings for you. But James was always there for me, listening to me whenever I was sad, whenever I felt lost, especially when I first moved to town and didn't know anyone. Our feelings blossomed naturally, secretly. My parents, they liked you very much and they wanted me to have a stable life. James at that time was having family difficulties. His parents were separating and he didn't have a clear direction. He didn't want me to suffer with him. We knew it was wrong to your friendship, so we tried to bury that feeling, telling ourselves we had to forget it. James decided to leave, not to see me for a while, so you and I could be together without complications. He said he didn't want to hurt you. That's why you didn't see James much when you came home to visit during your early college years. He went to work in another town and we promised to cut off all contact, bury that feeling forever." I was stunned. A secret that had been carefully buried for so many years, a secret I had never imagined. I had trusted Maria completely, trusted James's friendship, but it turned out that from the very beginning, I had been deceived, blinded by a facade of false happiness. The symphony of my love, which I thought was perfect, had a discordant note for a very long time, a note of betrayal that I was completely unaware of. "But then," Maria continued, her voice softer but full of helplessness, "when you went away for work, I felt so lonely, Lucas. Noah was small and I had to take care of him alone, manage the bakery. The pressure was immense. You were busy with work, with distant projects, rarely coming home. I felt weak." Just then, James returned to town for work. He had also just gone through a difficult period in his personal life. He needed a peaceful place. He was always there when I needed him. He helped me take care of Noah whenever I was busy. He listened to me, shared everything with me. He was always the first person I thought of when I encountered difficulties. The old feelings just rekindled stronger than ever. We couldn't control it anymore. We tried to fight it, but we couldn't. I'm sorry, Lucas. I'm sorry for betraying you, sorry for hurting you. I know no apology can make up for it." I looked at Maria, then at James. Both had their heads bowed, faces full of regret and resignation. But the pain in me was greater than all those apologies. I could never forgive this betrayal, not just because they had been together behind my back, but because they had hidden such a huge secret for so many years and let me live in a dream and illusion. "That's enough," I said, my voice terrifyingly cold, as if I were speaking to a stranger. "I don't need to hear anything more. Everything is already too clear. We're getting a divorce." My words were like a verdict. Maria looked up sharply, her eyes wide, full of despair and fear. "No, Lucas, don't, please. I know I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll do anything to make amends. I love you. I love Noah." "Fix what?" I gave a bitter laugh, a distorted smile on my lips. "Fix the truth that you loved another man when you were still my girlfriend, my wife, the mother of my child. Fix the truth that I lived in a lie for so many years. I can't, Maria. I can't live with someone I no longer trust. I can't live with such a huge secret. I can't keep being a deceived fool. I turned and walked away, leaving Maria and James with their pain and regret. I couldn't stay another second in this house where everything I had once believed in had completely collapsed. The symphony of my happiness was shattered, leaving only discordant notes and the echo of betrayal of loneliness. The days that followed were hell. News of our divorce quickly spread throughout the small town. Everyone whispered, gossiped, but no one knew the full story. No one knew about the terrifying secret that had been buried for so long. I tried to keep everything quiet, not wanting to hurt Noah. He was too young to understand what was happening. I didn't want his future to be affected by adult mistakes. My parents were heartbroken when they found out. They tried to dissuade me, but I was too determined. Maria's parents were the same. They came to see me and apologized on behalf of their daughter, but I could only shake my head. Maria still tried to contact me. She came to find me at my company, called, texted begging for my forgiveness. She said she had made a mistake, that she regretted it, that she still loved me and Noah. I heard those words, but my heart had hardened. I couldn't forgive her. Not because I no longer loved her, but because trust was shattered, and once broken, it couldn't be mended. I couldn't look into her eyes without seeing James, without seeing the lies she had hidden for so many years. James also came to see me. He stood before me, head bowed, his voice full of remorse and shame. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I know I was wrong. I betrayed you, betrayed our friendship. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I tried so hard to forget Maria. I left town to cut off contact with her because I knew she loved you and I didn't want to ruin anything. But when you were away, she was lonely and so was I. I couldn't control myself anymore. I know it's not an excuse, but I just want you to know that I've been tormented and I fought a lot with myself." I looked at James, my closest friend since childhood. I had once trusted him more than anyone. Now he stood before me with the face of a betrayer. "Do you know, James?" I said, my voice low and heavy. "I didn't just lose a wife. I lost my best friend. I once believed we were brothers. You knew about my feelings for Maria for a long time, yet you still hid it from me, still stayed with her behind my back. That's something I can't accept. I don't hate you, but I can't be friends with you anymore. Live well and don't hurt anyone else." I turned and walked away, leaving James standing there alone, bearing all the shame and remorse. Mark was always by my side during that difficult period. He didn't judge, simply listened and supported me. He helped me realize that despite the loss, I still had people who genuinely cared about me. Ultimately, we reached a swift divorce settlement. I was granted custody of Noah. That was the only thing I wanted to keep. I didn't want my son to grow up in an environment without trust, without sincerity. I wanted Noah to grow up in a healthy environment where love was clearly expressed without secrets. I knew this decision would cause Maria extreme pain, but I had no other choice. I couldn't continue to live a life full of lies. After the divorce, I decided to leave the town, leave behind all the painful memories. I sold our house, resigned from the construction company, and moved to New York with Noah. I wanted to start a new life, a new chapter for both my son and me, where there were no shadows of the past, no old wounds. My parents, though sad, supported my decision. They said, "Do what's best for you and Noah." I found a new job at a large construction company and dedicated all my free time to Noah. I wanted to make up for what he had lost, wanted him to feel the complete love from a father. I started learning how to be a single dad, how to care for Noah, how to cook meals for him. I learned how to read bedtime stories to him every night, how to play with him in Central Park, how to listen to his innocent stories. Every time I saw Noah's smile, I felt a glimmer of hope, a guiding light in my life. He was the light, the reason for me to continue. I knew the journey ahead would still be very difficult, but I would never give up. I would be stronger, more resilient for my son. I changed a lot. From a man who only buried himself in work and trusted blindly, I became more cautious, more discerning, and observing and feeling what was happening around me. As for Maria and James, after our divorce, they also left the small town and moved to another state. I heard they got married and also started a new life. I no longer contacted them. I didn't want to know anything more. My life now consists only of Noah and my work. I forgave them not because I forgot the pain, but because I wanted to free myself from hatred and negative emotions. I forgave so I could move on, so I could focus on Noah and our new life. I didn't want the past to haunt my sons and my future. Many years passed. Noah grew up healthy, intelligent, and he is my pride. I became a good father, a steady man. I still occasionally return to my old town to visit my parents and Mark. Each time I go back, I hear new stories. Once Mark told me some not-so-good news about Maria and James. They had moved multiple times and Maria's bakery was no longer as prosperous as before. It seemed their life wasn't as perfect as they imagined. He said, "James seems to be struggling a lot. He lost his stable job in town and found it hard to find new work elsewhere. Maria tried to revive the bakery, but the atmosphere between them seemed heavy. Maria's mother was very sad and disappointed in her daughter. Perhaps the secrets and betrayal left indelible scars even for themselves. Hearing those words, I felt no glee, only a gentle sense of regret. I realized that even though they got what they wanted, the price was sometimes too high. Happiness built on deception will never last. Life's biggest twist isn't the betrayal itself, but how we choose to face it and move forward. I chose to let go, to forgive, and to rebuild. And I believe that was the right decision. I no longer feel resentment or anger. I found peace in my life beside Noah, and I wrote a new symphony, imperfect but true and meaningful. I rebuilt my life in New York, no longer surrounded by endless fields or familiar red dirt roads. Instead, there were towering skyscrapers, bustling streets, and a life full of challenges but also opportunities. I still held dear the memories of my small town, of innocent friendship, of first love. But now those memories no longer brought pain. They were just a part of the past, a lesson for me to grow. I realized that no one in this life is perfect, and secrets can exist even in the closest relationships. What matters is how we face them and how we choose to live on. This is my story, Lucas. What do you think about my decision to let go and start a new life? Do you think Maria and James found true happiness after what happened, or will the scars from the past haunt them forever? Sometimes the greatest forgiveness is forgiving oneself to be able to move forward. Please leave your comments below. Share your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you found this story meaningful, share this video to spread reflections on love, betrayal, and the journey of healing, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next emotional stories and profound lessons. Thank you for listening to my story. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.